Hello and welcome again, everyone. I'm Andy Bryan from the Soul Pathway, and today I'm here with Chris Roberts. Today we're going to be speaking about the energetic body and how we can go about healing it. It's going to be a really fantastic discussion. I connected with Chris a while ago, and it was really interesting to hear a bit about his story and what he's gone through in terms of healing his own energetic body and supporting others in the process of healing theirs as well. So we're going to be jumping into what it means to actually really heal our energetic body so that we can step into who we are and in many ways live our purpose. But before I jump in too much, let me introduce Chris.
Hey, how you guys doing? Super glad to be here with you, Andy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And to get started, it'd be great to find out a bit more about who you are and what you do, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start with a little bit of background about how my journey started. I won't go into too many of the gory details, but like many people, had some pretty traumatic events happen early on, and from that, ended up developing a pretty intense anxiety disorder, and depression tends to come along with that. And so I kind of just had to power through childhood and started having my initial spiritual awakening of sorts when I was about 17. And that really just kind of opened up the door for me psychologically to want to explore different spiritual philosophies and this and that. And it really started my journey. And, over the course of the next nearly decade, just learned everything I could, right? So just a sponge, really drawn to and resonated with a lot of Eastern philosophies, certainly psychology, and once I started kind of getting into metaphysics, I was like, okay, this is some real, just intuitively, right? You resonate with things more than others.
Yeah.
Was just really drawn to and resonated with metaphysical concepts, and so I learned a bunch of cool stuff, but my life didn't really change. And so after a period of time of this studying, and I was reading about the law of attraction well before The Secret came out, and would practice affirmations and all different kinds of things. But yeah, so after a period of time of just not really having a lot of significant change in my life, at this point I'm in my early 20s, drinking way too much, unable to hold down a job,
Yeah.
can't attract a meaningful relationship, all the typical things that people are, by this age are looking to incorporate in their lives. Um, to post an ad on Craigslist actually for a mentor, and was actually looking for a job at the same time, and both these things kind of converged, and I met my mentor at a job I was working at. And it was actually really kind of interesting. The first day, I have love and fear tattooed on my knuckles just from certain philosophies that I've come across over the years that was very meaningful to me. And so the
Yeah.
first day at work, he's the sales director. He has this big whiteboard up on the wall, and in one corner he writes love, and in the other corner he writes fear. And I just kind of sink into my chair like, what is going on here? It's not a very common concept, right?
No. Yeah.
Anyhow, just so yeah, long story short, I hid my tattoos for I think a couple weeks before the front desk guy's like, "Hey, like, what's going on here?" And of course, we got to tell Wit about Chris's knuckle tattoos, because it was a known thing that this is part of his philosophy. And yeah, he started mentoring me and turned me on to some higher level spiritual tools that I mean maybe I would have come across on my own. I'm not sure. It really opened a very important door for me.
Yeah.
And once I started to learn these very specific tools to heal myself at the energetic level, I started to see the change in my life that I was so desperately craving. And one of which was, my anxiety was so bad that I had a really bad skin condition. I mean, typically people have acne and past their teenage years, but looking back, I realized it was just a product of so much cortisol and stress hormones flowing through my body. So
Yeah.
as my anxiety got better, my skin began to heal up, and for me, it was I wanted nothing more. It was life changing. So I knew that I just, discovered something really special there.
Yeah. And it's really interesting looking at the energetic body anyway, I find, because I feel it's a lot happens where we have the emotional overload. With so much happening, our emotions sort of get hit, and the senses just go wild. Would you say that is where your experiences of anxiety came from at that point? You felt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from how I like to see it is, and luckily we have people, on the world stage like an Eckhart Tolle who will speak about something like the pain body. And it's difficult because all these things are pretty elusive. People, spiritual seekers are sensitive, and they'll have these experiences. They can't really, necessarily describe it too well, and it's confusing. But yeah, I would say as far as the energetic body goes, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. And so from my perspective, what happens with traumas is that they record in this energetic body, right? And they remain active vibrations that influence you throughout your day to day. I mean, and some of these things might just be kind of always active, like always just kind of a humming of an anxiety. Other things might need to be activated and triggered.
Yeah.
And that's why, I know you're really into shadow work. I think that's also why it's very important, kind of marrying these two concepts, to be begin to understand, like, what is a trigger and what does it mean, and what's the anatomy of this spiritual body, and to demystify it so we can begin to understand what these dynamics are in our lives, so we can make some change.
Definitely. And my question is then, I know we had a brief discussion in the in the green room beforehand for the
Yeah.
discussion. How would you define the energetic body? I know you spoke about it being the pain body, but how would you really define it in regard to yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, we were discussing this prior. I'm not. I don't know if there's necessarily much of a difference between, say, an aura and the energetic body. If they're one and the same, I'm not sure. What I would say is that, something like a pain body, I think, is probably, you know, a part of this phenomenon. But I really see like the pain body as being something that's not really who you are, right? Like your trauma isn't, even though our traumas can define us, we aren't our traumas. So I really see that this, from a higher perspective, being, the soul or the spirit, right?
Yeah.
Incarnating into the physical body. And we're actually these, really multifaceted, dynamic, energetic, spiritual beings. I mean, people talk about it pretty regularly in the spiritual community all the time, but yeah, I feel like there's a lot of, there's a lot of demystifying that still needs to be done. And, it's part of why I really appreciate you doing what you're doing here, right? People
Yeah.
are drawn to it too. So,
Very interesting. Very interesting.
yeah.
And it's interesting you said about what the soul there, because the energetic body, we can have experiences of a lot of intense energies going on around us, like let's say the Schumann resonance has just been off the charts, and we are being somewhat attacked, not attacked by it, but the energy's off the charts, so we feel it in our energetic body. So the
Sure.
importance of healing. But it's interesting you mentioned about healing, because I find healing is a lot about disconnecting from the emotions of the trauma, isn't it? Mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's exactly it. Right. So, you have this energetic block, or like a thorn in your side, that has an energetic vibration signature to it, that, we live these things out. And so from my perspective, as you begin to pull out the thorns out of the, as if you will, out of the pain body, it allows for more of your higher vibrational energy to be in both the physical body and the energetic body, right? And so, That's why I see people just simply flushing out the excess foreign energy, not even starting to work on the pain body. You just flush out the regular day-to-day junk that's in the spiritual body, and you can do this within 10 minutes, and people are just instantly 20% less anxious, 30% less depressed. I mean, it's really incredible. And I'm still like looking for a way to best describe this to people, because it really is an experiential type of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's I can't show you my aura unless you're already a clairvoyant, which most people, as we know, are not. So to experience firsthand is really, I think, the best way to really tap into these spiritual dynamics that we all have. I mean, it's we're all connected in that way. We all share these things. So
Definitely. And one of the things I wanted to speak with you about was how you began connecting with your energetic body, because I find what's interesting with us as men, we have this thing called ego. We all have ego anyway, as men and women.
sure.
It doesn't matter, but something about the conditioning of men is that we are seen to be more attached to our ego, instead of women are more sort of in flow with their spiritual side and their energetic side, which you could relate to the emotional body. So I'd imagine like connecting with the energetic body might have been challenging for you at first, or even the spiritual concepts,
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's funny. I think that a good way of putting it is I was blessed with a lot of pain, so I was very motivated to be open-minded and try these things. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it is really interesting that I mean, even various spiritual schools that I've gone to, they're dominated by the population's 75% women or more. So it is definitely an interesting phenomenon. There's different ways to look at that, I suppose, but I think it is, and this is something we've discussed before too. I think it is crucial for both men and women to balance their energies, and that includes your masculine and feminine energies. I mean, there's many sensitive spiritual men that are, from my perspective, operating too much in this female energy space. And I used to be one of them, right?
Yeah.
I was the nice guy who couldn't get a girl and was just really ineffective and just stuck in my feelings all the time. And not that these are bad things, but it's quote unquote bad when it's having a detrimental effect on your life. So yeah, I would love to see more men being open-minded and seeing the benefit of a meditation practice. I mean, I feel like there's a good amount of men in yoga. I think that's one area, maybe because it's more of a physical thing that they tend to be more drawn to, right?
It's interesting you say about the masculine and feminine, because I've been very much connected with my feminine energy as well,
Yeah.
And I find when men first jump into spirituality, they tend to dive into the feminine, because that is understanding our own spiritual aspect. And I remember there was a great quote many years ago I came across that was about, in order for men to spiritually awaken and ascend their consciousness, they have to go through the feminine. So you could say in many ways that men have that phase of being out of balance with their masculine, because they're trying to deeply connect with their inner feminine.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, yeah, that's really thought-provoking. And one thing I'd add too is I think we live in a very male dominated society, and we have for quite some time. I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that isn't influenced by the overarching culture, right, of the world. I mean, there's plenty of people too that think that we're actually getting ready to shift into a more of a a feminine dominant vibration, or at least we need to before we destroy the planet. Not to get too gloomy on you here. But
it's very true.
Yeah, no, what you said makes a lot of sense though.
So we move on to how we go about healing it. We've we've spoken about what the energetic body is and how it can affect us in many different ways. But the important thing within all of this is how we go about healing it, and that can be challenging, can't it? So I'd be interested in what your thoughts are on how you can go about healing this energetic body and what sort of tools that you use, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of my message is that it really doesn't need to be that difficult. What I'm trying to do is, I've put in, you know, 20 years of work of researching these type of things, and um, I think a lot of traditional methods are super effective. Not a lot of people are wanting to go to school to study Jungian psychology and some of the more intensive, in-depth, scholastic things. People tend to just want their problem solved. So, part of my message is that with some simple tools that are really, frankly, from my perspective, just innate spiritual abilities. I mean, from my perspective, we're creators, right? And a reflection of the divine, which is in a lot of ways very synonymous with creation itself. And so when you start to look at things like the law of attraction, and you start to put these pieces together, you start to realize like, oh, okay, like especially once you validate for yourself, you actually leverage the law of attraction and start to validate, okay, this is a thing. A lot of people want to focus on manifesting love and money and these things, but we can use that same ability of harnessing our consciousness to direct it inward, right? To begin to, through a very simple methodology, which is what I teach, to start to clear out your energetic space and begin to neutralize these pain points in the pain body, which, it's really simple. I mean, it's also like peeling like an onion. So for me, like I had a pretty heavy pain body. I cured my anxiety disorder, but it took me a year, right? And then you pull back those layers and you realize, okay, I got more junk in here that I got to address, right? And so I don't know. At the same time, for a lot of my students, and this is a subject I think that we're going to get into, just the flood of external foreign energy that we're constantly bombarded by, the chaos of the world is in our space, and we're feeling that and resonating with that. Just simply flushing out the foreign energy just off the top layer of your energetic body typically is a complete cessation of things like anxiety and depression. From my experience with the students I've worked with. Of course, people are going to have heavier traumas. They're going to take a little bit more time to uproot. But yeah, it's really simple. So, I mean, I think you already asked me, so I'll just go ahead and elaborate. I mean, everyone talks about grounding. Yeah. You don't need to be barefoot in the woods to ground. You don't need a crystal to ground. And this is something that I really am wanting to get out there. It's like with our own consciousness, with that same ability to create, we can direct and move the energy in our space very easily just by visualizing. So what I teach people is you could actually just close your eyes. You don't even need to close your eyes, but close your eyes and visualize what I call a grounding cord, right? And it connects you to the planet. It helps anchor your energy into the physical body, but it's also a way to release all this junk that is not serving us. It's not our energy. So that's the first step in the process that I teach, and other people teach that are out there that are familiar with this type of methodology. But it's really just crazy how simple it is, right? And it's somewhat of a meditation, but not all meditations are created equally. There's different purposes. It's not a mindfulness meditation. It's very very specific in the tools we use to direct the energy out of our space. It's a very specific methodology. So,
and it's all about frequency as well. Obviously, the understanding of frequency with regards to our energetic body, because it's a lot about the energy we hold around ourselves and the pain, the pain that we feel inside as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly right. So, I mean, if you're carrying a bunch of foreign junk in your space, you might not even be that well aware of it, but it's certainly going to be affecting your mental emotional state. And it's just so boggling to me that you could actually, energy doesn't work in a vacuum. So as you clear out through your grounding and you run energy through the energetic body, clear it all out, you need to fill back in. So that's when I teach, you need to call back your vital essence, your energy. And so with this is a really interesting concept. I mean, many people in the spiritual, community see us all as being one, right? God, one unifying consciousness. We're all, drops in the ocean, which is God, which I think is very true. But at the same time, you also have your own unique energy signature that is unique to you. And so when you begin to have your energy in your body, things kind of just begin to naturally balance out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting you said about that as well, because I find when we're on our spiritual journey, we very much follow our own path, and obviously that's what my work is all about. Your own soul pathway.
Yep.
But we all know when we're on our journey, we have those people that resonate with us and our frequency, and those that don't. And sometimes those people that are toxic for us, you could say. I don't want to say toxic so much, but the energy really does affect our own energetic body and the way that we go about living our lives. So, my question is, how do we go about working with these different people so that we are not bombarded by this energy, and we are protecting ourselves in these situations?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question that a lot of people are really wanting clarity on, that I've come across. And to me, this is really a little bit back into your wheelhouse and your expertise of Jungian psychology, which I've also studied. I'm certainly no master of, but there's a couple of dynamics going on. On one hand, I think that people tend to attract. Oftentimes, you have the polarity or the dichotomy of the empath and the narcissist, and they keep seeming to find each other. Why is this? Well, I really think the empath and narcissist are two sides of the same coin. I think that we attract people into our lives for a reason, and typically for, like, say, the empath, what is it? And this is how this ties into shadow work too. Is what in me is resonating at a frequency that is drawing you into my life? What can you have to teach me? So, for example, I attracted a very toxic, super, and I don't want to use the word evil, but very damaged person in my life who was very manipulative. Luckily, it didn't last that long, but went through a great deal of pain and heartbreak. But because I had the tools I had, it was an opportunity to heal, right? And so, I think on one hand, we're drawing the people to us because of active frequencies in our space, and the universe is always serving us up the things that we need for our evolution, I think, really. And so as you become conscious of these things, you can work with the universe instead of fighting it. But that being said, on the other hand, acknowledging the different, you said toxic traits that someone else might have that we're very reactive to. What part of them am I unconscious to in myself that I can reflect on, right? And that's kind of the basis for shadow work. Beyond that, I think the third point I would make is, it is very important, I believe, you could be, I think that the vibration of neutrality is very powerful when you're non-reactive. You don't, from an energetic standpoint, you're not feeding into said toxic dynamic. That being said, people who are, empaths and sensitive people have a hard time going to family events or being in crowds. And there is a way for us to protect our energy.
Definitely.
And, people say, like, imagine white light. My philosophy is you need all these different energetic components, the grounding, the, being able to define your space, clear your space, and then protect it, right? But it's definitely a complicated question you had there, and you can look at it from different views, and I kind of hope I encapsulated that all right.
Yeah, actually, I love what you said there. Really, I think there's a lot you touched on there that's very important for people. For me, I found with the empath and narcissist, relationship, in many ways, it's about finding our own power and our own worth and stepping into that. And when we are not acknowledging and seeing our worth, you could say that is when we attract people that don't acknowledge our own worth, so that we need to go about finding it, because our spiritual journey is very much about finding that, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Well, there's so much we could talk about with the energetic body. So I'll be interested to hear, what are some of the challenges that you faced specifically in your life, in terms of your journey. The challenges and obstacles, and what you did to overcome them, so that you could really master your own energy and master your life. In many ways.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that in my late teens, early 20s, I had so much adversity. There was almost no, and I had glimpses of these states of higher consciousness. I already kind of had this level of knowing that there was something more. And so my journey was really just not forgetting, hey, the answers to your question, the freedom you're looking for is out there. And because of that, I felt like I really didn't have a choice. Some of the challenges I faced, though, is, in my 20s, I was very, I think some people can relate to this. I was very skeptical, and I didn't really want to be on medications. And so, I self-medicated primarily with pot and alcohol through my 20s. And so what I found, though, was after, I'm working on learning energy dynamics, and I'm going through a healing process, and I'm making progress. My skin's healing. I'm getting more balanced and stable to where I can actually hold down a job. So I had to fight all these things. But yeah, peeling back the layers, I'm fighting anxiety, depression, poverty, addiction.
Yeah.
And so even though you kind of just got to stay the course is my advice, but once I started to realize, okay, what I'm doing is working, my skin's healing, my anxiety is getting better, I'm able to start to hold down a job and actually have some financial stability. Okay, well, what's the next layer? Okay, you don't have anxiety anymore, but now you have a drinking problem, right? And so it's just, there's just layers, right? So
Yeah.
There's always going to be challenges, and I don't think that there's necessarily any end to the progress that a human being can make in life. I mean, I'm a big proponent of reincarnation. I don't think we do this one time around and get it all figured out. So I think embracing the idea that the concept that it's a journey, and do our best to enjoy the journey, and adversity is what creates and helps growth.
Yeah.
Are just mindsets that can help us power through. And a lot of times it saddens me that people tend to give up, and I feel like even the people who give up and don't give up on the good fight, even at maybe be a very slow and unconscious level, there's an evolution going on a spiritual level. But I think the point is let's get to the point where we're conscious enough to facilitate our evolution, and we don't have to suffer so much in our growth.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of what's going on in society, is people are being forced to waken up because of the energy of chaos, and it's just continuing to increase. I mean, I think it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's like grow or die, guys. The planet doesn't owe you anything.
Yeah.
So
very, very true. And I was listening to some shamanic teachings online. I love to listen to different elders from the natives, and there was one I heard earlier that was learning to be humble with ourselves and our own mistakes, knowing that we are all human. And it's interesting that you say about that we go through these challenges and obstacles. We have hard times, and sometimes we use things as coping mechanisms, or we go to things as coping mechanisms, and obviously they're not great in those moments. But no, like you said, it is that journey, and we've got to be humble with ourselves and know that if we are shifting our consciousness and stepping into who we are, then that will be a process of dissolving those things that don't serve us. But it's that process, like you said, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very wise. I wish I had studied, and maybe I will, more of the shamanic stuff that you've been. I mean, I've been to Peru and communing with shamans and stuff, but it's wisdom from different cultures like that. These native cultures is it's just so profound, just being connected to the earth and their traditions and what they're able to tap into without all this. We think we're so advanced with all this modern stuff. It's like, go talk to a shaman and listen to 5 minutes of his wisdom and let that blow your mind, right?
Yeah, they're incredible, aren't they? They're incredible, and it's I think, like the elder said today, like everybody has something to teach us.
Yeah.
Like it was fantastic speaking to you today about the energetic body and really learning how to understand that so that we can be more in peace of harmony with ourselves, because there's no doubt about it. It can be very challenging, can't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective, though. I mean, I think you're right. You can learn from anybody and everybody if you just have the right mindset. Certainly, I think that's where ego can get in the way, right? Of, I got this. I got this whole thing figured out. I don't, what are you going to teach me, right? And
Yeah,
I think we all fall victim to it. I mean, that's the elusive nature of the ego. So
yeah. So I know we didn't want to speak about what was going on in the world, and we're not going to jump into any form of politics in any way. What your views
sure.
here or what your views there.
Yeah.
But we all know that there is a lot happening energetically. That is a matter of fact. You could say the human resonance is very high, that I mentioned just briefly earlier. There is a lot of stuff happening in all the different countries around the world and within this pandemic. And this can definitely affect our energetic body on a daily basis. So my question is, I know we've spoken about how we can go about healing the energetic body in different ways, but are there some short, simple techniques that we can use on a daily basis that can help clear out some of that energy that is, affecting us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my answer is yes, absolutely. And this is what I'm trying to teach. So, from my perspective, it's an energetic universe. For one, we're constantly being bombarded by energy of, the environment around us. And the idea of owning your space on an energetic level and getting balanced is also the idea of, creating your space so you aren't just the victim of the shifts of the world, right? And so I think the more balanced and healed you are, the less tumultuous and chaotic the ride's going to be as the energy of the planet continues to increase. And we see all these different institutions kind of crumbling, all these old ways of being, different power dynamics that are just going to crumble because of, from my perspective, the increase of the energy. They're old paradigm, and there's a new paradigm emerging in the world. And so there's going to be a lot of upheaval, I think. And people are worried, like, oh, I'm so glad it's 2021. And I don't say too much, but I'm like, hey, buckle up. We're not done, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff, whatever institution or whatever system you want to look at, we got a lot of problems, right? And so, I think it's all connected also, as well as, I think the most important thing anyone can do is increase their awareness and expand their consciousness and get themselves right, because it affects the whole. We're all connected.
Yeah.
It ripples out. I mean, you don't even see the effects of, I think it was Dr. Wayne Dyer that said one enlightened person offsets like 1 million souls that are asleep. And so, people get caught up in what's my purpose. And I think that it's hard to think of anything more purposeful than a spiritual journey where you're healing yourself and thus helping raise the vibration of the planet, right?
Definitely.
We got a whole bunch of people still stuck in old paradigm stuff holding us back. I mean, I think that there's a beautiful design to it, so I try not to get into judgment about it.
Yeah.
But it's also part of my message, though, is, if you're if you're really having a hard time with these changes and stuff, it's a great motivator to get yourself balanced and in alignment. It doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges.
Yeah.
But it means you don't have to constantly unconsciously be matching the energy of chaos in the world, right? Find your balance, find your peace.
Yeah.
And you can navigate these things with a lot more ease. So.
And I tend to completely agree with you there. I think that's it, hit the nail on the head, like you said. It is finding that peace and harmony within ourselves, being grounded, being connected, knowing who we are, living our purpose, and knowing that we are doing what we can each and every day to support ourselves first, because we've got to be in the space to support ourselves, and then those others in their lives, so that we can be the best for those other people showing up around us.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, you asked if there's any simple exercises people can do. Yeah, anyone who's listening to this, I do offer a free ebook and some free classes that show you exactly how to ground, exactly how to call back your energy. And these simple things will certainly be a good start. It's really just kind of an introduction, but it's basically the first 2 of 5 tools that I teach in my foundational class. But I'm giving that stuff away for free.
Okay, cool. Have you got a small exercise that you can share today? Like let's say with me, let's say I've got this anxiety. I'm so overwhelmed with what's going on in the world right now. It's just I don't know what to do. Tell me what's the best thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. So I want you to understand that each of these tools build upon themselves. So we won't go through all of them.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest is if you want to just go ahead and close your eyes, and anybody who's listening to this podcast, just go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to locate your tailbone. If you want to if you need to reach back there and feel where your tailbone's at, but just put your awareness on your tailbone, which is the location of the first major chakra of the 7 chakras. And then just simply, I want you to visualize a line of energy. Just pick a color. You don't have to make this complicated, but send a line of energy down to the center of the planet. Just visualize it dropping down effortlessly, connecting with the core of the planet. And I want you to see this as wide as your hips, okay? We're going to keep this simple. Just find a color, send that tube down to the center of the planet, wide as your hips. And then next, I want you to, if you want to see a button or a lever, just with your intention, set it on to release. And in this way, any energy that we put into our grounding cord will just effortlessly go down to the center of the planet. Cool. And then if you want to, we'll take this a step further. If you want to imagine your aura, there's actually 7 major layers to your aura, but if you want to just begin to bring your attention to your energy bubble, your aura around you, I want you to tuck this ball of energy around you tuck it into the grounding cord. And now from here, typically I would start running spiritual energy through all the energy channels. We're not going to do that, but go ahead, and what you also can do is, if there's something specific that's bothering you, maybe it's a nagging mother-in-law or a boss or politics or something, whatever it is, or maybe you don't even know what it is. Maybe it's just a general feeling of anxiety. You can just find a mental image picture that represents that, or you can just find a color of energy that represents that energetic vibration and just see it going down your grounding cord. And just breathe. This is an exercise, and less is more. Just, you want to relax. This is a no effort exercise. And you can just begin to send that down your grounding cord as we begin to release the energy and separate from the energy that's not ours, that doesn't serve us. Okay. And now, as you release, energy, as I said, does not work in a vacuum. We need to fill back in the spaces that we've just cleared out. And so, what we do to call back our unique vibration of energy, our spiritual energy, is I want you to go ahead and visualize maybe 3 to 5 feet above your head a giant golden ball of energy, like a sun. And I want you to imagine that this is a magnet for wherever you've left your energy. You don't need to know where, but just imagine it sucking, collecting, and filling up with just postulate that it's collecting your unique vibration of spiritual energy. I want you to see it at a gold color and let that fill up. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and just rub your hands together, and you can actually go ahead and reach up and grab it and bring it down and see it filling in all of that bubble, as well as all of the physical body, and postulate that if there's anything stuck that you're ready to release that you don't have to be aware of, let it push down that energy out of your space and down into the grounding cord. Your high vibration of energy will move out anything that's stuck. And the more you do this and incorporate it with the other energy tools I teach, as far as clearing out the chakra, we clear out the chakras in each layer of the aura. The more you do this, you'll be increasing your vibration. It naturally triggers a healing process in the body. Mm-hmm. My students tend to feel much lighter.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
A cessation of anxiety, because your high vibration of energy it's not anxious. It's powerful. It's balanced. It's focused. It's peaceful. It's all the adjectives you could throw out about a divine being, the monk on the hill. It's all those things, right? It's presence. And so, you can't really have both of those energies in the same space. So as you bring in more of your energy, you flush down all that stuff that's not serving you. And, I do this I initially was teaching this in because people, it's hard to sit down for an hour or even 30 minutes in a meditation for people. So I started just teaching in 15-minute chunks. You can sit for 15 minutes. We're going to clear your whole space, right? Yeah. And, people tend to feel some tingling or shifts in their body the first time. But the vast majority of people, by their third time doing this, half of them are like, I don't have any anxiety anymore.
Yeah. What I love about it is, that was a nice quick process. And, if we're speaking about doing this on a day-to-day basis, then I know, like you said, at first it can be challenging, but once you get used to it and you clear it every day, it will become much more simpler, and it'll be like cleaning your clothes every week, isn't it? Doing the washing.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. And it's that's a good way of putting it. You go and clean your clothes, you take a shower. If we could see each other's energetic bodies, like, man, you need to shower. Like, go do your meditation. I'll see you in 15 minutes. You look like hell over here. So, we're not there yet as a species. It's not the Celestine prophecy yet, where we're all, seeing each other's auras and stuff. So, that's why it's very much so an experiential thing here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, and sharing, more importantly, that exercise with myself and the listeners, because I've found that to be very, very valuable. We are coming to the end of our interview, so last few questions. Are there any other sort of, last bites of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners today?
That's a great question. I would say that, whatever it is you're either wanting to achieve in this life or free yourself from in this life, if you begin to understand and study energy dynamics, it opens up the door for all these things, whether it's a cessation from anxiety like I needed, or if it's things you want to achieve. That's what the law of attraction is. And if we have a comprehensive full circle view of how these dynamics of energy work, you can begin to harness them to work for you. And as far as purpose goes, I don't know if there's any deeper purpose other than, healing yourself so you can create the life you want. I think that's why we're here. So, if you guys want some resources, there's always good books I recommend. A New Earth from Eckhart Tolle is great. Four Agreements, and I actually am probably gonna at some point need to put a list on my website of books is just for just general, knowledge reading. But I would just say also don't give up. Times are tough, but the more you can work on yourself and move, intentionally through a healing process, life gets a lot easier. You're not going to be without challenge, but you don't have to suffer, right? We can grow without the suffering.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that you mentioned the Four Agreements, because I've, one of my good friends shared it, with me a couple of years ago actually, and I'll tell you what, it's one of those books that you have to read it or even listen to the audiobook. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I really love that it's deep wisdom. Again, stemming from I don't know if it's necessarily shamanic wisdom, but certainly there's some kind of indigenous vibe in there. But a short, concise read, very simple read, but very profound. So yeah, I always love recommending that book.
Yeah. So last question, where can we find out more about yourself, your work, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I am the founder and head teacher of Inner Frontier Institute. We have a Facebook group called Activated Empaths. If you go to our website, www.inner-frontier.com, you can access a free ebook. It goes, it's a short book as well. It's maybe 26 pages. Threw some cool photos in there too for visual aids, but just outlines more in detail of the energetic body and how we can use these tools. Again, also including two class videos on grounding and basically the exercise we just went through and more in depth. They're short, 7 to 10 minute videos. I'm giving that out for free. And then from there, we have a foundational class, you can find on that website as well.
Fantastic. And I will say thank you again for sharing your guidance and wisdom today about healing the energetic body. Thank you all the listeners for tuning in as well. I hope you found it to be valuable. And I do look forward to speaking with you again next week as well.
Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate what you're doing and having me on the show. I really appreciate it very much. Thank you for what you're doing.
It's my pleasure. Well, thank you very much. And I will say bye for now.
All right, guys.
It's also about the masculine coming back into balance.
I had reconciled my mind and my soul.
A world opened up that words cannot describe.
That you have to love yourself. You can only love another to the extent to which you love yourself. That simple yet profound truth.